Winning cures everything. Now for your hosts, Gary and Chris.
Welcome in. Winning cures everything. This is Thursday, March 26th, and luckily we've got a lot of news to talk about today. So just random things that have happened, at least somewhat interesting topics. If you want to go and check out our conversation about the 2020 college football season and whether or not it's actually going to happen, what the changes might be, etc., we talked with Cecil Hurt from the Tuscaloosa News. You can go check that out from yesterday. You can find us over at winningcureseverything.com. All of our picks, previews, podcasts, videos, social media platforms. Hey, Chris, we talked yesterday about good gracious, I've got stuff dinging all over. We talked yesterday about you making bread. I first want to discuss what you did with it last night. Did you make that bread pudding? I should have talked to you about this off the air. No, hadn't made it yet, but you're thinking about it, right?
Probably not, because it's all gone.
It's all gone? What did y'all do with it?
We ate it.
No, but what did you make with it? Besides, like, you made sandwiches, I know, but, like, did you make more sandwiches?
I made grilled cheese sandwiches.
Okay.
And then later, I turned it in at night for cinnamon toast, which is spectacular.
I can get down with that.
And this morning, I made me and the kids cinnamon toast for breakfast. And then my wife fed it to the kids for lunch.
I can get down with all of this. Okay. I thought that there was more. I thought you were doing pizza. I thought you were doing all kind of stuff.
No,
so,
well, I mean, you can't make once it's made, it's made.
Yeah, it's done, right? Yeah, that makes sense.
Like turn it into something else.
True. That's you have inspired me though. I talked to Jess all night last night about it. So we saw a meme that was
it's more intimidating than hard.
That makes sense. So because she told me, I said, look, this is all the stuff it takes. Like we can totally do this. And she said,
oh no, the ingredients. I mean, it really is poor man food. It's not not expensive, not complicated. The hardest thing that you might not have just sitting around your house is dry active yeast.
Yeah, and we've actually got that, so we're good.
Yeah, if you've got that, you've got everything else.
There you go. Okay, yeah, we're probably going to do that this weekend. So, all right, let's go ahead. I do want to go on and bring in TJ Reeves while I'm calling him in. I do want to go ahead and tell you, Tunica, Mississippi, the South's premier sports gambling destination. They got 6 incredible sports books. TunicaTravel.com is the website to go find out more information on them. They are fantastic. They treat us well. They'll treat you well whenever they open back up. So, let's see. I think we got TJ here.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
There he is, TJ Reeves, the host of the Three Dog Thursday podcast. He is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers sideline reporter. You can find him on Twitter at Buck Sideline Guy, or you can find his main show, one of many, at Three Dog Thursday. That's it, on Twitter, right?
Yes, sir. You did great with all of that. It's great to hear your voice. Great to hear your voice as well, Brother Giannini. I've been checking you guys out, too, with the Daily Show. Keep doing what you're doing. Hopefully you guys are staying safe. Everybody practicing isolation and social distancing so that we can all get through this.
Oh, we are certainly doing that. Certainly.
Yeah, this is good stuff, and I appreciate the reach out here on all subjects. I have a feeling you're going to ask me about that quarterback acquisition from New England at some point, but I especially appreciate a little group therapy figuratively here when we don't have the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8 that we should be having tonight, tomorrow night, Saturday, and Sunday to be able to get through all of this. So thanks.
And no opening day baseball today, no Sweet 16 tonight. It's dry. There's nothing going on. It's just rough. But I will say this. Let's go on and hop into some of these topics. And I'll talk to Chris about this. And TJ, if you know anything about it, feel free to hop in. John Jones, Bones Jones, from the UFC, of course, arrested early this morning in Albuquerque, New Mexico, for driving through the streets. Yeah,
Shocking.
Which it's happened how many times now? Not this exact.
Is that the
incident.
8th or the 27th time that he's been in trouble? I can't keep track anymore.
It feels like the 100th. And how the UFC continues to allow him to stay with the organization. I have no idea. Chris, did you see anything about this?
No, but you text me about it, told me about it, and I mean, how they keep doing it is because they need stars.
He's definitely a star. I mean he
that's
pulls
it.
numbers.
I think they need draws badly, and he's going to be that. So
For those that don't know, he was driving around with an open bottle of alcohol, firing a gun like in the middle of neighborhoods. Like, I just don't get it. Like Rampage Jackson did this years and years ago, but there was no gun. He was just drinking and like ramming his gigantic vehicle into parked cars, like just for no reason. So
and not to deflect specifically off of him because that's idiocy what you're talking about there. But I mean, this goes on occasion in other sports, and how the league chooses to deal with these behavior problems is big. And in this case, UFC is run by Dana White and the people around him, and it's ultimately up to them on at what point is enough. At what point, to Chris's point, him being a draw and helping sell pay-per-views is far outweighed and overshadowed with you're a danger to yourself and to others, and you don't deserve the privilege. And it is a privilege to compete at the highest level of professional sports, a privilege that you can ruin. You don't, from my standpoint, you don't deserve that privilege after so many strikes against you and so many screw-ups against you. Give somebody else that privilege.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. But it seems like it is, guys that are involved in combat sports that typically get in trouble for things along these lines. Is it something to do with the sport, or maybe it's just the mentality that you have to compete in a man-on-man battle like that? I mean, is it something along those lines?
Well, I mean, we can get into a whole, half-hour or hour discussion about that part. We've talked before about fighters coming from broken backgrounds or next to nothing or poverty. Then you get into head trauma, you get into CTE and things like that make you behave unlike yourself. Not make an excuse for him. I have no idea what he has or he doesn't have, and you won't know that until he's deceased and they examine his brain later in life. They could do some tests, but most of it is posthumously that they're able to find that out. So there's all kinds of different factors that go along with this, but one of the things that was taught to me very early is the same thing with you guys and with most people that grew up with parents. You are responsible for your own actions and your own behavior. And if there are not consequences, then you're going to have people behave even as adults like what we're seeing here. If there's not a consequence from the UFC, you're banned from what we do. You're no longer getting a check. You have ruined the last chance we've given you of multiple chances. Then that's the message, at least to other fighters, that, hey, if I'm successful enough and popular enough, I can get into trouble and it doesn't matter.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right on that. Let's get on to a much nicer, friendlier topic.
Please.
Let's talk about Tom Brady. Let's talk about what's going on down in your neck of the woods. He obviously signed.
I haven't heard. What's going on? What's happening? Can you update me?
Man, so tell me what the feeling is like first in
I
Tampa Bay
have
before we
been
get
on
to trade
more
marks.
shows. I've been on more shows, not your show, and more conversations than I think I have with my wife, even though we're in isolation here. And that's not necessarily a good thing. But, I think a few people want to know about this, and rightfully so. And I will say what I have said in other places here. This is the biggest deal. The only thing that compares is the Bucs trading 4 draft picks, 2 1s, 2 2s, and $8 million for a coach for John Gruden in 2002. And that one ended with Gruden winning the Super Bowl against his old team. I mean, you talk about Hollywood doesn't buy the script, and yet that happened in real life. That is exactly how it happened. This, I think, surpasses that, guys. In the 35-plus years that I have lived in the Tampa Bay market, came back to Memphis for 4 years, the late 80s, the early 90s, go Tigers go, and was at Memphis State. But other than that, I have been in and around this franchise as a fan or as a media member in all of their off seasons, and this dwarfs everything. And the only thing in terms of players, the only thing that compares to it is the Gruden situation. So it's that big of a deal when you're talking about a Hall of Famer who willingly wanted to be here and pick the Bucs out of several different options. I mean, I was on today with some Boston guys with the Bloomberg Boston affiliate, and they were trying to push on to me that nobody was really interested in Tom Brady, and that Brady had to grab the Bucs as like a life raft. And I said, I didn't call them clowns, but I fought the word clowns. I thought of bozo. I'm like, there are numerous teams, including the Chargers, including the Raiders, and probably 4 or 5 others that would have been after Tom Brady, but I think the Bucs just appealed to him and appealed to him with their weapons. And I know Chris is being ultra quiet here because that's been your guy. You're a Patriots guy, and now he has divorced the relationship with Belichick and Kraft and decided to go on his own somewhere else. And we're all about to find out what happens to New England without Brady and what happens to the Buccaneers with Brady. We knew this day was coming, and so now we're going to get to see what it is when we get back to football later this fall.
Well, Chris, let's go on and bring you in here. What do you think here? Is there any – do you think that there were really no other suitors or, tell me what you think.
I don't think there were as many options as people like it out to be that he actually wanted to go to. There was – I've made it abundantly clear on this show. I've had a relationship with this man for 20 years. It's the most stable relationship that I've ever been in my life, okay? For 20 years, and I feel like I know him. There was no way on earth he was going to the Chargers. He was not leaving Bob Kraft and Bill Belichick and the stability of Josh McDaniels for Anthony Lynn, the Spanos family, and some 23-year-old kid who's had his 5 minutes as an offensive coordinator. That's just not what he was going to do. I didn't know what else he was going to do. I really thought he was going up in Tennessee, but I do think they had suitors. I do think he had options. I can't believe that he didn't end up in Tennessee for the most part, really, because he's making less money than Ryan Tannehill. Yeah. That blows my mind. But I absolutely thought his other option, the second place if he doesn't go to Tennessee, was going to be Tampa Bay outside of staying in New England. I think those were the 3 that I really believed were going to happen. If one of them would happen. I'm actually glad it was Tampa Bay. Mainly, it's a different conference. So I got a team I can still root for him. I love Bruce Arians. You know how I feel about that, Gary. I've followed that guy everywhere he's been.
You've made it very, very clear you wish that the Browns had gone after him instead of.
Oh, I was furious last year when they hired Freddie Kitchens over Bruce Arians. I mean, I was very, very, very upset. A level of upset that cannot explain, and I think I was proven right on that. I believe I had that. Yeah. So, I'm excited for him. It's interesting about Tampa Bay because outside of John Gruden, Tampa Bay has historically gone after big fish like this before, and they've struck out a lot.
You are correct.
And the fact that they didn't strike out here is a big deal. So
I'll tell you this.
It's a good point. Yes, it's a good point that he makes.
The Gruden move, what you talked about with the Hollywood ending, all that kind of mess, if we somehow end up, and now I would not put it past the Patriots to be incredibly successful with either Hoyer or Stidham at quarterback because of what Chris has talked about on the show over the past few days, over the past week, et cetera, about how they can slow everything down. They will win with defense and with the running game, et cetera. They'll play a different style of football than the rest of the NFL, and it could take some teams by surprise. And that type of football is still built to win in the playoffs. So if you could get a Patriots versus Bucks in the Super Bowl and then have it, I mean, you've got it in Tampa Bay.
Are you talking about Super Bowl 55 at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa?
Unbelievable.
While you're writing your Fantasyland script for Hollywood to receive your submission, wow, that would be the ultimate ending if that were to be the case. But so I'm not sold on the good ship New England here. There's a far better chance that they become mediocre, sorry, Chris, or bad without the Hall of Famer. You bemoaned all season long how bad the offensive line was and how poor the weapons were around him. I don't know how you wave a magic wand and have that suddenly be better. Maybe they will. Maybe he will continue to coach them up, and they end up winning 9 or 10 games. Down here,
I think they're going to play completely different football. That's all. I don't think they're going to be Super Bowl contenders. Let's get that
Yeah, no, I'm just throwing that out there. That wasn't Chris's idea.
Well,
That
sure.
was-
And now let's bring it back to this situation where you have had 12 years of drought. Yeah, you now hit into year 13 without being in the postseason. Only 2 winning seasons in the last 12 years. And this guy brings instant postseason credibility. He has owned January for the last 20 years, basically. Certainly, the players like Mike Evans, Levante David, and others are starved to listen to this guy and follow him out of the locker room. So you have to believe. People keep asking me. I'm preempting you asking me questions. People keep asking me, what do you think their record, their win total is baseline to start the season? What's the fundamental number you go with? And I would say 10 wins.
Yeah,
you are looking at 10.
Yeah, over-under's 9.5.
Yeah, let's say Vegas set it at 9. So,
so 10 is very real. Can he get them to an 11th win? Can he get them to a 12th win where you're talking about the strong possibility of winning the division at that point, more than likely being in the running for the bye at that point? I know we're way ahead of ourselves, but he's worth 3 or 4 games in terms of being able to win games that you maybe haven't won over these last 12 years when you've suffered the losses, and that's what the hope is for the Bucks.
Now, talk to me about this this trademark situation. He trademarked the TB by TB. Would it be a phrase or an acronym? I don't even know how you would trademark that. I don't know how that works. But he is looking
what they're trying. I know a little bit about this because it's funny that you just stumbled on asking me this. I've tried to trademark some things. I know a couple of trademark lawyers. So one of the things that you try to do is block other people off from being able to make money off your likeness, off your image, off your name, off your phrases, off your slogans. One of the most famous ones was when Pat Riley went and gobbled up three-peat for the Lakers back in the late 1980s, and he did that as much as anything to keep others from profiting off of them having a three-peat in LA. A lot of times that is what you're doing. So it's probably to try to block some others that might want to take advantage of that, and it is a long process. It is not something that takes a week or even a couple of months. This might be 8 months, 6 months, 8 months, because different people can file with I believe it's the U.S. Trade Commission. It is the proper agency, can file about these trademarks and say, I challenge it. I had it first, or I want to do this. Here's why. There's written arguments. So again, we're going down the rabbit hole of government and bureaucracy. But the short version is they're probably trademarking several different things like that. Maybe as many as a half dozen or 10 of them to keep others from being able to grab, variations of TB in TB or TB12 in the Big Bay or whatever. All these different phrases, and use them in the marketplace, use them on shirts, use them on websites, et cetera, et cetera. So there you go.
As far as the Tampa Bay schedule goes, the home games include the Falcons, Panthers, Packers, so you get an Aaron Rodgers versus Tom Brady. You got the Chiefs at home. Yeah.
I think everybody's going to see that game. That game's going to either be a Sunday night or a Monday night game, defending champs against Tom Brady and the Bucs. Yeah,
100%. The Chargers, Rams, Vikings, and Saints are all at home. You've got the Falcons, Panthers, Bears, Broncos, Lions, Raiders, Saints, and Giants. What we don't see on here is a trip to Miami, so I think Tom should be safe for that one. He typically always loses that one for whatever reason.
Yeah, especially the late December one always seemed to haunt them. But, yeah, it's going to be a wild time here. Everybody was on that conference call. I mean, it's the state of current affairs that we have no games, no previews, no recaps, no nothing, that we ran Tom Brady's conference call until the tape almost cut and wore out earlier this week. ESPN ran the full phone conference call as it was happening while showing highlights on ESPN SportsCenter in the middle of the day. Why not? Because we got nothing else to show and talk about.
Nothing else. Good gracious. Now let's kind of shift gears a little bit. I hope you don't mind. Are we keeping you too long? Are you good?
I got to scoot at about 5 minutes. If you're coming to college basketball, I'm ready for you. You coming there?
Well, I was going to talk Wilder Fury for just a second.
Give me that first. Go ahead.
Let's go ahead and do that. Wilder Fury 3 is postponed until, I believe, the first weekend in October is what Bob Arum told everybody. The postponement, do you think there's any chance that they end up just saying, okay, let's nix it until a better time next year so that we don't have to compete with football, we don't have to compete with all these other sports going on, and try and fit it in right now? Do you think that they push it back even further and decide, you know what, we need full training camps, why don't we get another fight in here? And then the second part of this is, if they do go on and fight in October, who does this help more? Is it definitely Wilder, or is there a chance that this helps Fury kind of refocus himself and get back to work?
So the quick version is that my understanding, just from all the reporting and all the stuff that's being talked about, they only have a certain window where the fight has to take place, or one or both of them can walk away from the deal. That's why October is critical, because I think that's where the rematch clause runs out. Then you have to have a new agreement, and that's why they're pushing for it. And so the belief is that everything will slowly start to come back around in mid-May, in early June, and you can prepare for this, and most importantly, sell tickets for Wilder Fury in Las Vegas and have 15,000 paying top dollar worth of big gate like what they had. They made almost $20 million on the live gate, people showing up for the February fight. I don't think it's as big a factor, too, with college football and the NFL around, because this will be a big enough deal. It'll be hyped by ESPN and by Fox during the football season that they're coming to that pay-per-view. So all things being equal, that's why they're picking that date. That's why they're doing it. I think it does benefit Wilder in one way, in that he has more time to analyze what happened. If he and his camp are going to get their act together, it gives them more of a chance to do that. Of course, right now, we don't know how much they're able to work together and where, because of the current circumstances that we're all kind of sheltered and sequestered. So we'll wait for the sport of boxing, just like all of the other sports, to resume. Hopefully a little later here in the summer, we'll start getting fights again, and then that will get cranked back up in that whole conversation while everything's been on hold, guys.
You got that right. All right, go ahead and tell everybody. I heard on Three Dog Thursday today a great interview with Tom Penders. Lots of good stuff. Of course, go tell everybody about the college basketball podcast, et cetera.
Yes, so there's two podcasts. Right now, Three Dog Thursday is out. You can find that wherever you get podcasts, and Coach Tom Penders is on that, telling Sweet 16, Elite 8 stories from the late 80s and the early 90s, and Penders took 4 different teams to the NCAA tournament, but 2 of them to the Sweet 16, and Texas to the Elite 8. So I love telling those stories. Again, it's therapeutic to talk about what the magic is of these weekends. This weekend where you set the Final Four, and next weekend where you traditionally play the Final Four. So one more podcast plug is the College Basketball Coast to Coast podcast. That one will be out later this evening and for this weekend. And we're going to talk a bunch about Memphis, by the way, guys, and Memphis State and the 85 Final Four run, my senior year, the 92 Elite 8 run with Dave Woloshin, the longtime play-by-play voice of the Tigers, reminiscing about all these games, and the 08 Sweet 16 and Elite 8 wins over Michigan State and Texas in NRG Stadium in Houston. So a bunch of Sweet 16 and Elite 8 talk on college basketball coast to coast. But that's not all. This is like a Ginsu steak knife commercial back in the 80s. How much would you pay? Giannini, $19.95, $29.95. Wait, there's more. Kenny Anderson, the legendary Georgia Tech guard and the NBA All-Star, is also on the College Basketball Coast to Coast podcast that'll be out later tonight, telling stories about the 90 Sweet 16 where he hit the game-winning shot in the Superdome to beat Steve Smith and Michigan State. Then they went to the Elite 8 and won over Clem Haskins in Minnesota, playing for Bobby Crimmins. So great stories from Kenny Anderson, the famed New York legendary playground point guard that came to Georgia Tech and helped them go to the Final Four. So it's great group therapy on college basketball coast to coast, just telling stories about the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8. So you can find that wherever you get podcasts, college basketball coast to coast. I'll be tweeting it out, publicizing it. There'll be others that'll be publicizing it as well. So if we don't have the games, at least we can reminisce about the ones in the past, guys.
You've got that right. You can find him on Twitter at BuckSidelineGuy. TJ, we always appreciate you hopping in. Thank you very much, my brother.
It is my pleasure to hop on with you guys anytime you need me. Thank you. Again, you're doing a great service here because people need distractions right now. Keep it up. Everybody stay safe out there. I have much love for my Winning Cures Everything dudes. I'm going to do Final Four programming next week, and I want one or both of you on there. I got space for you, space available. Come aboard.
We can
We're
do
gonna
it.
talk some Final Four next week. You guys be well.
Absolutely. You
See
too.
ya.
We'll talk to you soon. TJ Reeves. All right, so I've got some more topics that I want to hit before we get out of here. But yeah, the Wilder Fury thing I think is interesting. He did not get into this. I think it still helps Wilder even more. I did not think he was going to be ready by summer because he got destroyed. You and I sat and watched that fight together back in February. He was whooped. I mean, there was, and I didn't know how he would be able to come back from that just a few months later, get in a whole camp and everything, and actually have time to recover. I mean, do you agree with that?
Yeah, but the argument about it competing with college football has to stop, though, Gary. It doesn't compete with it because the fight's not going to kick off until midnight.
Agreed. I'm just talking about the number of people that will be, like, that's not the big show in town, right?
But it doesn't matter.
I understand where you're coming from.
As soon as the big game, whatever that, and how many times in the middle of a college football season do we have, even in October,
Yeah.
there is no big game. And
Yeah,
if
that's
the big
true.
game is a Big 10 game or a Big 12 game, that thing is happening at noon. So that means 7, 8 o'clock, everybody's talking about the fight because nobody wants to see, Clemson, North Carolina State. They just don't.
You're right. You're right. You're 100% right.
So I mean, it's just, so because of it so late, and I think if you're into fights, then it's gonna be the biggest thing going on then anyway, and it just makes an already exciting weekend exciting.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right.
So
Let's move on.
I'll tell you this: I don't know that there's an amount of time that can help Wilder.
You might be right about that.
He's not going to learn to box between now and whenever the hell it's going to happen. The only thing that's going to help him is, the problem with the longer we kick it out is if Fury turned into a raging party animal after he beat him, then you want to fight him quickly.
That's true.
Because you're going to hope Fury is still hungover. And I will tell you, I think that's Wilder's only shot. I've watched them fight twice. Fury dominated both fights.
True.
Wilder hit him with the best punch he had in fight one, and I thought that was it. He got him, and he knocked him out. And the reason I bet Fury on the last fight was strictly because I remember that hit. And
it still didn't knock him out.
Big son bitch sit back up and get back on his feet. And I thought, nope.
It's like The Undertaker.
You can't knock him down. Until I see somebody knock him out, I don't know that he can be knocked out. And if Wilder can't knock you out, he can't beat you.
That is 100% true.
That might not be everybody. He can't beat this man.
True. That if Fury is going to be the big time betting favorite in this fight, with all the reason in the world, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, he's dominated 2 fights in a row. He should.
Yeah,
he absolutely should be.
But Wilder does have. Let's see, UVA Hoops jumps in on YouTube. He said, skills-wise, Wilder has none. That guy cannot box. He's dead on.
But he can throw hands.
But
he would have to connect a multitude of times to actually win that fight.
I agree.
And
I can't believe that first one went 12 rounds.
Is if Fury's still hungover. And that's not outside of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, it's happened before.
Big boy likes to party.
Yeah, it has happened before. Let's move on. Let's get into these last 2 topics fairly quickly. NCAA distribution issues. Now, I sent you this earlier. The NCAA Board of Governors voted unanimously in response to the cancellation of all remaining winter and spring NCAA championships, et cetera, et cetera. They are distributing $225 million in June. Now, for those that don't understand exactly what we're talking about, all of the D1 programs out in the country, all of those schools get a certain amount of this money that comes to the schools, right? The NCAA distributes that money, and a lot of it usually comes from March Madness and NCAA, like College World Series, all this different kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, those are the 2 big money makers for college sports.
Yep, for the NCAA. They are distributing $225 million between all of those schools. The budget beforehand was $600 million, and they're only distributing $225 million. They are waiting for the event cancellation insurance policy from March Madness, from the NCAA tournament, which is $270 million, And to even get up to $225 million, they still had to bring $50 million out of reserve. This canceling of the NCAA tournament, canceling of all the spring and whatever sports, winter and spring sports, and whatever summer stuff they got going on is probably going to be on as well. If they do not have football, they are in a whole mess of trouble. Now, NCAA doesn't get a ton of the football stuff because obviously that's all done by conferences, etc. However, there is still a portion of the money that comes in from all of this. They are in a world of hurt if they don't get some of these sports back up and running, and the schools are in serious, serious trouble.
So I'm outside of my depth on my ability to actually talk about this intelligently because I don't know. At any point in time, can the NCAA fall so short on money that possibly another entity could rise up from this and say, you know what? We really don't like the NCAA. Let's break away. Let's start our own thing. And the way we can do it is we can pump cash into these schools that feel like they're getting the short end of the stick because they feel like they're the moneymaker and we shouldn't be spreading the wealth to everyone.
Well, here is the way that this works. All of these schools put together make up the NCAA. The NCAA is all of these schools combined. The schools themselves put the NCAA in, and then they hired, the people to actually run the organization, etc. So I don't expect it to change. However, if we do get to a certain point, the only thing that might make a difference is the Power 5 programs and those Big 5 conferences pulling away from everybody else and creating a separate division. And that's been in talks when I say in talks, it's not a legitimate thing.
Rumored by writers and people like us.
Exactly. It's been talked about for years and years that the P5 will eventually pull away because the P5 makes all the money and a portion of their money goes to the group of 5 schools and whatnot. That is where you might see the divide. You might see the break. But a lot of that hinges on whether or not football actually happens this year. So, I mean, we'll see how this works out. But, yeah, you're going to start seeing some major league issues with entire universities possibly shutting down if the football season doesn't happen. And that's for a group of 5, et cetera, because if the TV contracts and the people coming to games, et cetera, don't happen, the first thing you will see is a bunch of athletic programs shutting down. And it won't seem to make a lot of news and whatnot, but without those athletic programs, a lot of these schools cannot operate, and it becomes a major issue. So we'll see what happens, but losing March Madness is big. That's a big issue. I have a
question that I didn't think of until after we were off the phone with Cecil, and I'd like to ask him this, and it could be a very simple answer of, okay. All right, everybody plays a 10-game schedule, all conference games in his scenario, whatever. Does he bring up, what do we do with Notre Dame? Because there's only like 6 independents. Do we just lump them into the ACC?
No. It's not based on like independence. It's not based on anything like that. It is the 5 conference champions, and then you've got 3 wild cards.
No, but his schedule was you only play 10 conference games.
No. What he was saying was not just you only play 10 conference games.
No, in his article, it talks about how he thinks they should play a 10-game schedule that are all 10 conference games.
Right, but when he was on with this yesterday, he brought up 9 conference games and 1 non-conference or something along those lines. Like, find a way to make it fit.
I was going based off of his article, so I went back, I reread it, and I wanted to get some more depth on it. And if we were to do the 10 games in conference alone,
what would Notre Dame do?
We would pencil in Notre Dame in one of the championships because they're going to play the other 6 other independent teams, and some of them they're going to have to play them twice.
Yeah,
because that's all they got.
And that's like with his hypothetical. Obviously, like I don't think Cecil likes discussing hypotheticals very much, but this is what it is right now. We don't have a lot of sports going on. You and I both.
Like I said, I took his article, I read it, and then the one thing we didn't bring up at all was, what the hell do we do with Notre Dame? And I think the easiest solution would be you build a 10-game conference schedule with them in the ACC. They're already in the ACC in basketball. and they already have like a football contract with the ACC where they play so many people. So that would be the simplest. Instead of them playing Liberty and New Mexico and BYU 3 times, that's the answer. But I just kind of wanted to throw it out there as part of our discussion yesterday, and I didn't think about how do we handle them.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We make the ACC, what are they now already? 14-team conference.
Yeah, 14. So they'd be. 15.
So they would have 15 teams, and we just make a schedule with those 15 teams and be done with it.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think you're right about that. So yes, with this NCAA distribution, obviously Notre Dame, Alabama, Texas A&M, et cetera, et cetera.
The big boys,
they're not going to have to worry about it.
Yeah.
And they will be fine. They will continue operating because there will be a football season the next go round, and all of these guys have boosters, et cetera. But that NCAA distribution number of $225 million is really nowhere close to the $600 million. Now, per team, per school, et cetera, it's not as big of a hit because you're distributing $600 million to 300 teams or whatever it is. So it's not a major league hit. It's just, wow. I mean, you're going from a few $1 million to maybe a couple $100,000. And for some people, that is their entire budget. So It's a big time problem. So we'll see what happens with that. The last thing I wanted to talk to you about, we talked about Cam Newton off the air before we got on here. His video today that went viral, where he said that the Carolina Panthers gave up on him. Tell me what you think. I want to know your thoughts on this.
I mean, I think I'm okay with Carolina moving on from him.
Yes,
but B, I think he's the best guy out there available, and I think he's better than a lot of starting quarterbacks. I think if you're the Chicago Bears right now, you hate yourself for making the trade for Nick Foles.
Yeah, I agree.
Because they originally were in consideration to trade for Cam Newton, but they chose not to because they couldn't get medicals. They couldn't get clearance, and there just wasn't worth all the assets. Plus, Cam's salary was like $20-something million.
Now that he's waived, you can come to an agreement.
You could sign him to a 5-year deal, or a $5 million deal or something. I mean, whatever he's willing to take, you get him substantially cheaper. And I think if you're the Bears, you hate yourself right now. And I do like the Bears. I root for them. I wish they would have waited. I wish they would have waited.
Yeah,
because
he looks like a beast right now.
Yeah, and he does look like a beast. I think he's going to have a good year because I think he's sat out an entire calendar year. He's healthy. He hasn't taken a hit in over a year, or by the time we get football. I think he's gonna be over a year since his body's taken a hit. Do I think I would sign him to a 3-year deal? No way on earth.
Nope. But you can get away with 2.
1 year prove it deal? Yeah, I think he'd do that.
Oh, I think he would absolutely murder on something like that. And so I agree with you.
What is he willing to take is the biggest thing, because there aren't a whole lot of places I think where he could just walk in the door and they could say, we're going to let you be the starter.
That's true.
That's the issue is he willing to go actually compete for a job? And that's what I don't know. If he thinks I've got to go to, Jacksonville and half the people want, not Minshew, Minshew, and the other half want me, like I want to be given the job. And that's just not how the world works, bro.
Nope. It is
I'll
not.
tell you this. I'd take him in Cleveland.
I think we can end on that one. All right. Let's go ahead and get out of here. You can follow Chris at ChrisBGNNE on Twitter. You can follow me at GaryWCE. Make sure you subscribe to the show on the podcast or on YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, or just go over to winningcureseverything.com. The Daily Show is up there every single day. Go and check it out. We would definitely appreciate the support. Go over to tunicatravel.com. Tunica, Mississippi, the South's premier sports gambling destination. Go and keep up with when they are going to reopen. The Mississippi Gaming Commission will announce whatever. The governor of Mississippi basically went against everybody today and told all these local municipalities that they're going to be reopening and whatnot, even though the cities don't want to. So we'll see what happens. I'll see what he tells the Gaming Commission. So if you want to go down to Tunica, keep up with tunicatravel.com, and we will figure it out from there. Chris, is there anything else we need to hit?
That's it, man.
All right, everybody be good. We will see you all again tomorrow. Thanks for checking out Winning Cures Everything. If you want to keep up with us, hit subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. Visit the website at winningcureseverything.com, or you can like us on Facebook or follow us at Winning Cures, at Gary WCE, or at Chris B. Giannini on Twitter. Share out the show, leave a nice review, and make sure to comment and tweet at us.